Namaste, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a wonderful, exciting conversation with two eminent scholars and practitioners from the Hindu and the Buddhist tradition. My name is Nikunj Trivedi, and I'm the president of the Coalition of Hindus of North America, or CoHNA. And first of all, before we get started, I wanted to wish everybody a happy Buddha Jayanti. This is a wonderful day today to have this conversation about our sacred dharmic traditions and to someone who has made such a huge impact in the lives of dharmic traditions, both in India and outside of India. So it's a tribute to Gautam Buddha, Mahavir, Mahatma Buddha, as we also say. And we want to make sure that today we talk about a very important topic, the swastika. Many of us who have been involved in Hindu, Buddhist, Jain traditions and our practitioners understand the true meaning and deep significance of this sacred symbol of peace, prosperity, and well-being. Unfortunately, many times, due to certain historical incidents, the symbol of swastika, which is a symbol of peace, well-being, and prosperity, is mixed up or entangled with Hitler's cross or the Nazi hooked cross. The two are very different, and they have nothing to do with each other. So we're going to talk about that today. But first, I want to welcome Dr. T.K. Nakagaki. Dr. T.K. Nakagaki is now a good friend of mine and also the president and founder of the Haiwa Peace and Reconciliation Foundation of New York. He's also the author of The Buddhist Swastika and Hitler's Cross. It's a wonderful book that I highly recommend everyone to read. I also have Puja Swami Sarveshananda ji, hailing from Dallas. He is the national director for the Chinmaya mission Yuva Kendra, or CHIK West. And I've recently gotten to know Swami ji, so very much inspired by his wisdom and his message for Hindus in general. So happy to have both of you. Thank you for joining today. Dr. Nakagaki, let's start with you today.
Okay.
We've been working together on many different things as far as swastika is concerned. So let's start first with some information about the significance of swastika for the Buddhists, based on your experience. If you want to tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. So yeah, first of all, well, thank you, Nikunji, very much for doing this again. And so it's a great pleasure to work with you, actually, many different things. And so am I on now? Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So yeah, anyway, I changed my background for the Happy Buddha's birthday. And so it's a little bit not well done size-wise, but anyway, so if I how it says
yes, we can see it with Buddha there.
Happy
yes,
Buddha Vesak Day, and then the little Buddha that I made, but also there's the Buddha on a chest has a swastika actually, if you really look carefully, so you can see it.
Correct.
So it's the part of the Vesak Day today, and then so I'm very happy to have this day for this particular the session. So happy Vesak Day to you all, and then we need a more enlightenment anyway, and so it's the Vesak itself is something very auspicious, and it's like a symbol of the swastika too. So it is my pleasure to be here. And so let me start with my sharing the swastika, especially for myself from Japan. I mean, originally from Japan, I was raised and born in Japan. And so first I maybe introduce a little bit about the Japanese swastika, which is, you will find it like a temples. This is one of the oldest temple in Japan. Actually, when the Buddhism came to Japan, this is almost like a first temple of Japan. And then that's always you see the swastika all around. And so for Japanese people, swastika means actually that, if you go to Japan, you see this. This is a map all over the place. So swastika means Buddhist temple. So actually, it's like, well, I didn't know when I was in Japan. Actually, I didn't know this is a Hindu temple symbol also. But then for me, it was like if you see the map, this one is a Buddhist temple. So if you wanted to go to the Buddhist temple, you go this one, and if you go to the Shintoism, this is a Shinto, the mark. Am I pointing out? I don't know.
Yeah, we can see the map in the back. So there's
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so I have to point with the fingers, right? So
yes,
this is
the top right there.
Shinto, the red
Shinto
one,
temple.
and then the one this one is the temple, Buddhist temple. So this is kind of a common sense. Sometimes here common sense this would be like an evil symbol, but of course in Japan that's the common sense. This is a Buddhist temple. So it's the place that you meditate, or you bring the peace and the harmony, and talking about wisdom and compassion, and that's the represent this particular symbol. And so actually that's how I was raised. And so simply, you see really a lot of parts in a Buddhist statue that they have. So it's actually really like an enlightenment symbol. So the swastika represent enlightenment, the Buddha's mind even. And interesting thing is Buddha carry this swastika on a heart, but then the bodhisattva who always help the Buddha, but they can only carry this symbol on a hands or somewhere, so not on a chest. So there's this is actually Buddha's birthday. I just brought some of the picture that related to the Buddha's birthday. So it's a Korean
lanterns.
Temple. Yeah, lanterns. Yeah, Buddhist lanterns, and then the little Buddha and the swastika on the top of it. And so see, like there's a little Korean language here. So this is actually Korean Buddhist temples. And then,
this is a Korean Buddhist. Okay, that's really nice.
So,
okay, so it's not just Japanese, but of course, like you said, Buddhists in general have the swastika. So one
actually,
is
this is not
Korean.
this is not the Japanese. This is actually Chinese that
yes.
I show, if you realize or not. But this is a Japanese temple. In front of the temple, there's a big swastika, like the lanterns.
Yes.
And so that's so actually, I mean, everybody just know as a swastika is a Buddhist temple. Buddhist symbols in Japan, and then that's a sacred place. And since you mentioned my book, so I just show you. This is a book that I have wrote. And so the basically I'm talking, since I'm was born and raised in Japan, then so I just wanted to write this one on based upon my background, Buddhist swastika and the Hitler's cross. So it does, yeah. So that's from my point of view. So I'm hoping you will write a book soon, right? About Hindu swastika, and then maybe Jain people can write about Jain swastika, and Native American people should write the Native American swastika. So I think this is just a start. So it doesn't mean that I try to own the swastika or anything like that, but rather it's just try to express how important the swastika is from my standpoint. So
absolutely.
And then actually it was very interesting when I started to research this, because I moved to the United States in 1985, which is after university and everything. And so I started doing a temple work at the the West Coast first, and then came to New York. So that's one of the reasons I'm here. It was sent from the Honganji, Japan, Kyoto. There's a headquarters there. It's a traditional Pure Land Buddhist temple in Japan. So like 750 years old or so. And so it started Kamakura period. So anyway, so they have all the other branches, because if you remember, the Japanese American immigrates here like late 20th century. I mean 19th. So it's like it's a 19th century or 20th century. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it'll be 20th century, early
it's like
20th century.
Over 100. Yes, like over 100 years ago, actually.
100 years ago, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because of the immigrations and everything. So it's in fact when the Japanese people immigrate to the United States, Hawaii, and then like San Francisco and all those, and then spread to the Seattle's and West Coast. So the things what they did is they don't have any Buddhism here, so actually they asked to Japan to send some minister or priest come to help us, And so that's how Buddhism was sort of like welcomed by the, the Japanese American community here, and or more like a Japanese community at that time. And so then the different temples are built. And maybe I will show some of the pictures of the Japan. Well, actually,
So we'll come back to the history. I think.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
We'll
we're going to come back
yeah.
to history. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
At that
So
time, I wanted to talk about a little bit more
so
of the things.
I want to switch to Swamiji. Swamiji,
okay.
Let's talk about. So as Dr. Nakagaki mentioned, maybe we need to write a book about the sort of the Hindu related the swastika as far as Hindu tradition is concerned. I am not qualified to write such a book, but I would like to understand from you.
Swamiji,
yes.
Yeah.
So maybe Swamiji, tell us a little bit about kind of, from a significance of what is, obviously we have so much swastika is all over. So maybe tell us a little bit about what does swastika mean from a Hindu perspective.
Good evening to both of you, and happy Buddha Purnima.
Thank you. Namaste.
Before I get into the swastika as such, I would say that Hindu or a Indological perspective, Indological, that which is born from the land, the peninsular land, which primarily is Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism. So you will find this swastika as an integral part of all of these practices. And the root word goes back to swasti. Swasti means balance or well-being, and another meaning of it is also prosperity. So balance, well-being, and prosperity. What does swastika, when that ka is added in there, is it by mistake or does it have a meaning to it? So swastika is the one who enables or bestows upon the well-being and balance and prosperity. So in my last day and a half research, I just found that Bhagwan Surya, sun god, who rises up and provides nourishment for the entire cosmos, he is also referred to as swastika, the one who brings balance, nourishment, well-being, and prosperity for all living beings, not just human beings, for all living beings. So he is called swastika. So you can break that word su, us, and ka. Su meaning good, us being established or existing. So existing in a good condition, the one who can bestow you that environment is called swastika. And now coming to swastika as such, the symbol, we have a specific word in the Hindu religious understanding. There are three words actually. One of them I'll go in further detail today. There is mantra, then there is yantra, and the third one is called tantra. Mantra, yantra, and tantra. For easy, when I talk to children in classroom environments for their language to understand, I say mantra is like a formula, and tantra is the technique, and yantra is the instrument with which that technique is applied to get the benefit of what that formula is pointing at. So if I'm holding a pen, this becomes the yantra, and the technique of writing would be called the tantra. And what I write is how I have learned several languages and how I express through it, making it very simple to understand. So in the yantra portion, there are several symbols, and each one of the Bhagavan and Bhagavati, the gods and goddesses, are symbolically represented with a yantra, so that as soon as you see that yantra, you can identify. Goddess Lakshmi Devi is often represented by this swastika yantra. And as I was further researching, this swastika yantra has got a very direct relationship with what we call as Vastu Shastra. It's something similar to Feng Shui, which the Chinese call it. So Vastu Shastra, there is a swastika yantra there as well. Then in the Jyotisha Shastra, there is a reference, a particular portion of Jyotishya, which is the study of astronomical bodies and their influences on human beings. That is a Jyotisha Shastra. So there is one particular segment where it is called Hasta Samudrika Lakshana. Hasta Samudrika Lakshana is study of the palmistry. So there is a study of it. There I found that right under the right hand middle finger on this particular mound, if there is a swastika sign, then that person is endowed with, profound fame. Not only that person is person's well-being is established through that person is famous for enabling that kind of a safe environment for others as well. That is what that denotes, it seems. Then swastika, we find another reference is there's a whole study in field of mathematics called algorithms in the Vedic mathematics, and that field of mathematics is called Swastika Ganita. Swastika Ganita means the study of algorithms in Vedic literature. Then there is another reference is in the Sushruta Samhita. There are 3 books in Ayurveda: Charaka Samhita, Sushruta Samhita and Vagbhatta Samhita. So Sushruta Samhita deals with introducing various kinds of equipments. Again, equipment is called yantra. So the tools of surgery are called yantra. And the forceps, there are about 400 plus varieties of forceps. The forceps is called swastika, with which you bind things for the welfare of that entire system called human body. So it's called a swastika yantra. So you will find vrika mukha, like the wolf-faced tons, or a forceps, or a vyagra mukha, or a simha mukha. So there are different sizes and shapes. So that is the swastika yantra. But going back to the yantra, when these are the various varied references where I have taken you to Jyotisha Shastra, I have taken you to the Vastu Shastra, then the Ayurveda, Sushruta Samhita specifically. But it's all referring to that particular swastika yantra. So the best, there is a book called Amara Kosha, and in that there is a clear description of what swastika means. Swastika again means that which is in balance, that which provides balance, that which gives that well-being. And the root word starts from swasti, and I can quote several Vedic, I don't want to go into that route right now, the Vedic literature which refers to both swasti and swastika in quite dominance. And these, when you map them to the timeline, they're going to be in few tens of thousands of years old. So it is an ancient practice, is what I want to bring in our discussion.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we there's there's a if people know Tina Turner, very famous singer, she actually has a very nice video that I urge everybody to watch. It's like basically it says it's the Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, the Upanishadic verses. She actually has a beautiful song that goes with the Sanskrit verses, but then it brings a lot of kids in there to show how this Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu is actually a very harmonious mantra that unites people and brings harmony to the whole world. So I ask everybody, I urge everybody to watch that. You can just do Tina Turner Swastir mantra, something like that, and you'll get that on YouTube. So, and then naturally every day, many of us who are sort of like who do our pujas and stuff like that, we do Swastina Indro Vardashavaha, the whole mantra as well. There's so much, as Swamiji said, there's so much to cover there. So the history of swastika, which will come to Dr. Nakagaki next, but before that we go to the history, the idea is the symbol holds so much reverence and importance for us as religious communities, as people of this world. And it has been continuously used for, if I may say, thousands of years, right? Going back to thousands of years. Recently I found there was a Indian Institute of Technology had done a paper that traced the origin of Sanskrit, the swastika, into a cave in India, which is about 16,000 years old approximately. Okay, so it's very ancient, and that's like something that was written down. And of course, we know from the cosmos and observing of the cosmos, it's even much older. So it's basically a infinite symbol that is timeless for us as far as the philosophy and for the practices are concerned. So thank you, Swamiji, for bringing that out. Let's talk a little bit about the history, Dr. Nakagaki. We talked briefly about this before, so tell us a little bit about maybe pre-World War II history. If you can spend a few minutes talking about that pre-World War II history, and then we'll come to kind of after World War II.
Yeah, sure. First of all, and then in Japan, we call it manji. So the manji means actually the character of 10,000. The form of 10,000 actually. So
really?
Means,
okay, wow.
Yeah, so that's what it's more like a translation. I mean, translation of the swastika as a auspicious symbol. That 10,000 is really auspicious in Japanese numbers. So it's like a lot of virtues, a lot of the merits and everything is there. So it's like a lucky kind of the symbol as well. And so anyway, so that's a manji that you will talk about film later. So that's a Japanese term, actually. Yeah, there's a movie called Jumanji, but that's not Japanese.
That is not connected to manji.
I don't think so.
Or to Japan.
But, that's a modern world. But then but interesting Jumanji.
That's a funny way that you bring Jumanji. Now people will remember that manji is swastika. Like that's a good way.
Because the Ju in Japanese is actually 10 cross. So it's like a cross and then the swastika together for that particular
Jumanji.
one. Jumanji. So but anyway, so just interesting for me anyway. But sorry. So going back to the history part, because since I live here now, United States, I start learning the history of the Japanese American, and so they're here before the war, and so they established a lot of part in California, and then war started. Of course, the Japanese become enemy of any enemy country, like the same as Germany too. But so the thing is, at that time, the Buddhist temples, they use a lot of swastika actually. So as a symbol. So in a way, in this country, the swastika was able to use freely. Like, I'll show you some of the small pictures but this is like, by the Young Buddhist Association.
Yeah.
So they have, parties and everything. And on the top two pictures like that. And so every time when we have a special occasion, they, go like a parade and so forth on the street with this swastika, so there's nothing harming anything like that either at that time. I'm talking, there's some explanation there too. So 1930s. So, but then and then also this is the one that I wanted to give me a kind of interesting, because This is Buddha's birthday gathering. Actually, this is in Fresno,
It's the bottom
California.
left of your screen.
Right. Yeah. So maybe I'll make it a little bigger so you can see. So this.
There it is. Yes.
So top circle is actually swastika made by flower.
Yeah.
And then in a Buddhist tradition, I mean, especially Japanese one, we make a little shrine with the Buddha. So the bottom one is a little Buddha, the baby Buddha, pointing out. I mean, right hand pointing out the sky above the heaven, and then the pointing out the left one in the below the heaven. So I say it says like after he was born and he walked to the 7 steps and say those words above the heaven, below the above the heaven, below the heaven. I'm the most honored one, and my presence will save all suffering beings and so forth. So that was a scene of the Buddha, and then when they have, and then the rain came, and then the sweet rain more like came down, and so that's why we have a sweet tea, but putting on a little Buddha.
As part of the okay, got it.
Part of ritual, and then so this is a flower shrine, like a Lumbini garden, supposed to be a lot of flowers at the time blooming. Unusually, the flowers are blossoming. So that's the kind of the Lumbini's garden represent. So we just, create with a lot of flowers. And it's actually in Japan, in my temple, when I grew up, actually, I'm the one who make the swastika, actually. Because, because we put all the flowers, everything first, and then very end, as an ending of this making this particular flower shrine, we put the swastika on the top of the central part of the shrine. So it's like most important part of this flower. The shrine itself is this swastika, and then they also place the Buddha, little Buddha in front, in a center. So that's the kind of things that we used to do. And then, but then, after the World War II, of course, this symbol, even like this is the top of the temple, this, the front of the temple.
Bottom right screen, you're seeing. Yes.
Right, bottom right. And so these, common to many temples have that signs. And so it's in all over the part of the, California, or Seattle, West Coast. So there's many temple, especially Buddhist churches of America. Now they call it, but then it used to be North Mission of the United States. I forgot already, but anyway, something different name, a little bit different name. The mission, Buddhist Mission of North America. I think that's what it is. And so there's a different temples. The headquarters in San Francisco, and there's one in Los Angeles and Seattle, and different places. This is Fresno, as I said. So because the Japanese Americans, all the Japanese Americans, they built the temples at that time. They're very poor, but somehow they built it. And so they have freely practiced Buddhist things with the swastika. And then later, it become, of course, the war started, and then all the Japanese Americans, taken to the so-called concentration camps. And so, of course, they cannot use the swastika symbol because the Nazi Germany was using it too. So, but then some of the priests was, really wanted to hold it until the end. So anyway, so swastika was a very important at that time, and then at the same time, this swastika which was very important part of the Japanese community, as you can see, was especially Buddhist community, of course, was taken. So in a way, after the World War II, so of course, this happened to the same way in the Native Americans too, right? Native Americans used to, especially Navajo and then the south part of the, Native Americans using this symbol, and for a long time, prehistorical symbol, they said. So, but then, those they have to give up, and then the never will be returned. So after the war, then somehow, that this should be also another thing that should be returned to the community, like a Buddhist community, or also, at least the Native American community at that time was already there. So this fund is literally taken, right, by the governments, and then not be able to use anymore after that too. And so from that sense, it's something kind of, it's not just the symbol from the outside of the country, but rather already inside of the country. Yes. So that's something that I wanted to mention at this point for today. But I don't want to make it too long. So
we appreciate the history, because I think that's really important. I think that as we think about the historic significance of swastika in general, right? Our traditions have never stopped using it.
Yeah, right? Actually, this one was, also it's like, sometimes they have anti-Asian, anti-Japanese at that time. So all those swastika was hit by the gun.
Oh wow! It was shot by guns.
Oh, yeah, wow. So like
it's racial violence.
Aiming, right? Yeah, aiming at these things. So
just so everyone understands that, basically you're saying that during that time of war, Japanese Americans were targeted, or Japanese immigrants were targeted, and the swastika was shot with a gun. Right. On the temples and other places where Japanese Buddhists really were, so it's very unfortunate. I mean, that's sad to hear. It's a very hateful thing to do. Wow.
Right. So at that time is, of course, much more racially different.
Polarized,
more hatred and more vehemently attacked.
Yeah. So no, that's an interesting thing. But I know, anyway, so now let's turn it to moving forward. I think one of the things that we wanted to understand from you is many people are confused. Okay, they say, well, Hitler was using the swastika, but as we have talked about significantly over the last 1 year, that is not the case. So can you tell us maybe, just spend a minute or two just telling us the difference? You have also translated Hitler's Mein Kampf, right? Looked at the original. Did he ever use the word swastika? What is the idea here?
Yeah, first of all, it's interestingly mistranslated or misguided by the translation in terms of swastika versus hakenkreuz. It's actually Hitler's symbol, is actually he himself called hakenkreuz, never be called swastika even once. I mean, I was looking for all of the place, any place that he ever said swastika or ever write it on the word swastika, but I couldn't find those things, at least. But then I found, hakenkreuz all over the place. So it's basically, that's the words that he used. Even like Mein Kampf, which is the main book of the Hitler, right? So when he explained the symbol, of course, he used the words hakenkreuz. So in a way, this is the official way of saying this name. But then what's the difference between, how you call it? It makes a big difference. Like this swastika is the, as the Swaminji, explained it already, the precisely what it means from the Hindu for a long time. And then so it's really connected to the peace and happiness and auspiciousness, all kind of positive symbols and the sacred symbols of the, East, and then especially the Hindus coming from, and that spread to the Asia too. Anyway, I'm a Buddhist, and then the Jainism, of course, they're using too. So it's like one of the common symbol as the you call it dharmic symbol, right? So that's the one part, very, very significant. But then when you're thinking of what is a hakenkreuz, the literally means, haken means, hook. It's like a hooked cross. And hooked, like, the key, it's just like, and then the hakenkreuz, right? Kreuz is actually cross. So it's like a Christian cross, basically. As you know, the German country itself is a very Christian country. And Hitler himself wrote about, because, the Germany itself lost the war, First World War I. And so they have to recover their countries and so forth in that way. And then, so what's the best way to bring the country back? I think, of course, the one thing is, how you bring the country back. But also, he mentioned, like in a Mein Kampf part is the, one of the reasons they lost the war, because they have to analyze why they lost the war, first one. So his thinking was actually, it's not, willingness is not there. It's like the trust, or they're not enough to have such faith to the countries and things like that. So which means symbol is too weak. So he decided to make the more significant symbol to bring people in, all the German people together, and then all those what do you call it, quality, something you can die for,
Yeah.
So of course, cross, for the Christian country, probably that you can probably die for it. So even whatever the fights and so forth, that you're really this is fight for the cross, right? So cross, of course, represent the of course, the togetherness of God, or the salvation of the God, and all those aspects. But also, cross has a different meaning in history of the Europe. It has been used as anti-Semitism too. And so in one way, for Germany side, probably they wanted to bring all the Christian together, and then easier to make a target, actually. So
correct. And to your point, I think what they did was they actually so they had the Protestants and the Catholics, right? And Hitler appealed to both, even though I think he was Catholic. He appeared to both the Protestants and the Catholics and said, let's unite against essentially one common enemy. And the common enemy that he targeted and portrayed was the Jewish people and others, right?
Rome was Jewish. Non-Christian.
Non-Christians, basically.
So basically, non-Christian.
Target.
Yeah.
Yes.
And but so that's one of the reasons that Hitler's strategy itself many times actually came from the Martin Luther.
Yes.
Not, all the, Martin
Protestant.
Luther. Yeah, Protestant. Yeah, as you probably know who he is. Not the Martin Luther, King's Jr.
That's
Martin
not the
Luther.
one.
He is the namesake, the actual Martin Luther, who started the Protestant wing.
Right. So at that time, he himself also is famous for translating both Old Testament and the New Testament into the German language. So it's like he's really, what do you call it, knowledgeable, really understanding of this, those two testaments, New Testament and Old Testaments.
Yeah.
The thing is, he also wrote the book called Jews and Their Lies. That's actually a very controversial part of it. But yet, that particular book is very important for Hitler, really understanding the Hitler's why or how he did the things that he did. Because it is really deeply connected to what that books talk about. Yes. So, of course, Christian abandoned that particular book. You never use anymore. But probably even some Christians don't know how maybe the cross means, already at that time is, the anti-Semitism. So actually this is actually the Buddhist one. Actually, you can't tell anyway when you look at it. But when you see the corner, you can see the red, this particular color combination. Also, the Hitler is the one that creator. Actually, he's a designer, so he wanted to use probably the symbols, was very common at that time in the United States. So I didn't show it, but then in the 1880 something, from during that time, the swastika became very popular because especially after the excavation of Troy. The one in the
Mount and Herselek, yes.
Yeah.
Heinrich Schliemann.
So and then when they are excavating the the old area, then you find a lot of swastika came up. So that's why he start asking what this symbol means. Why do we have that symbol in there? And then so that becomes sort of like a new symbol, but yet old symbol. So that became the sort of interest of the people.
So I'll share that. If I can interrupt 1 second, I want to share something there. So when Heinrich Schliemann found this symbol, on the mound of Hacer. Like there was like thousands. He found like whatever 1,600 or something like that.
Mhm.
What's really interesting there is what most people don't realize. When he found it, he actually wrote a letter to a German Indologist named Max Muller. And many people who learn Indology and most people know about Max Muller, he was not very friendly to Hindus for certain reasons. He also was responsible for the Aryan migration, the Aryan supremacist theory in a way.
Right.
It was a major contributor. But when he wrote, so Hendrik Schliemann writes a letter to Max Muller saying, you are an Indologist, you understand this. What is this symbol? Okay. His partner or his guy who was, I'm forgetting, the French guy who was actually helping him excavate, he said that's a symbol of the Aryans. Okay. That's what he said. But he writes to Max Muller and says, can you tell me? And on the CoHNA website, if you go to cohna.org/swastika, we have the exact quote. Max Muller cautions Hendrik Schliemann to say, do not use the word swastika for this. The word swastika is only meant to be used by the people of India, especially the Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains. If you use the word outside of India, it is subject to grave prejudice. This was almost an ominous warning by Max Muller not to use the word swastika to describe this. There were other words in Europe, right? Filfot was a very popular word at that time. But unfortunately, Hendrik Schliemann decided to use the word in this particular situation also. So that's where the whole situation unfortunately unfolds, right? And this is a part of history that most people don't realize. So I just wanted to share that little bit of piece of information.
Because, that's why you spoke to the one that's, the even like the village or, the called Swastika in the New York State.
That's correct.
Maybe you can share that. That must be very interesting. You met them, right, already?
Yeah, so I mean, we had a conversation, right? There's a village in New York, sort of upstate New York, called Swastika. It's a small town, and they fought very hard last year, September of last year, to keep the name, because someone from the outside came and said, hey, why are you having your name called Swastika? And the guys, the supervisors who voted to keep the name basically said, hey, look, this name was here before Hitler came. And this is a heritage of our town, and we're not going to sacrifice it because this symbol doesn't really mean that. And by the way, so when we connected, just as a follow-up to that story, now they actually have literature in the town that explains to people what swastika is. So thanks to the connection that we developed, some of the Hindus went to that area and I think gave them some information. So this is a really important, that's how dialogue happens. So I'm, this is kind of the, and the story that you mentioned about the sort of the Christian cross connection, which is the hooked cross, is very, very critical. And I know, Swamiji, you have also, been talking about this, the whole idea of Protestantism. Do you want to share a few of your thoughts on that?
I would just put it in three, 4 steps. In Mein Kampf, what I think I understood of influences of the environment on Hitler at that time, Christianity had a major role. He himself claims, he writes himself to be a believer in Christ. And though he did not like certain portions of it, he mentions that as well. And I think the Protestants also turned to support him and his movement. So the hooked cross was something that he could create as a symbol for uniting all the German population to go against anything that was non-Christian. And in his book, he keeps referring to it as the hooked cross, which Nakagaki ji has already mentioned it a couple of times, that he mentions it as a hooked cross. But the sad part is, from the German, when it gets translated into the English translation, this word swastika gets dropped in. It gets maligned. And since then, this word, this whole symbol has been maligned systematically.
Yeah.
And that translation is what needs to be revisited, needs to be talked about, become more aware of, that the problem is in that which Hitler himself did not call it as a swastika. He called it as a hooked cross, which is connecting them with the Protestant movement, which is again Martin Luther King. It has got nothing to do with. So if at all anything, it has to go back to the Christian practices which he was adhering to. Nothing to do with the East Indological symbol which we as the Hindu, Jain, Buddha or the Sikh, we follow as a dharmic symbol. It has got nothing to do directly or indirectly. But at that time, probably the East was far remote reality. And they said, okay, let's take the eye of everybody's attention from the hooked cross as far away as possible and pin it on something which looks similar. And now it is coming back to haunt all the dharmic symbols, especially the swastika or Maji. And this dialogue is a necessity.
Yeah.
This understanding is a necessity.
Yeah, and what's really interesting on that front, Swamiji, as you mentioned, the dialogue is critical, and how this and Dr. Nakagaki talks about the translation. There are multiple translations of this, right? And how this was the challenge that we faced, though. If you think about what's going on at that time, India was not a sovereign country, right? India was under the British rule. And there were soldiers that went to fought in the World War through the British
on behalf of
the British and everything. So India did not control its narrative. India did not have control over its narrative. Had India been an independent country at that time, and commerce and things were freely exchangeable, and the population of India, the Indian population, the dharmic traditions had their own narrative, life would be very different. Because at that time, I think we would have directly challenged that, hey, this is not a swastika. We use it on a daily basis. This is something totally different. And I think that narrative did not exist. We did not have control of our narrative. I mean, we have a different problem right now, which is a different conversation. But we did not have control of our narrative at that time. And that's where I think a major problem does come in. So let's switch a little bit.
Just one thing, sorry, before. But at the same time, at that time, Aryan, the word's Arya, Aryan, that become also cricket. Well, actually, it become the Aryan, so which means white, supremacy type of, central part. But then but that particular Aryan is actually used together with a swastika. Actually, in the Mein Kampf, when he explained it, what is a swastika? It's a symbol of the winning, the kind of victory of Aryan race.
Correct.
So because Buddhism, of course, originally the swastika is a symbol of peace, but then that's the Aryan symbol. But the Aryan means noble, four noble truths, Aryan Satya. So we practice the noble truths, and then you become enlightened. So which means totally, fully noble. So that's the symbol that you can have. So it's actually most sacred symbol, being the enlightened one to the truth and reality with the compassion, all those auspiciousness and everything's to be there together. But then somehow that also connected to the Aryan, that's also very, very.
If I may interject here. The word Arya in the Indological reference means somebody who is balanced, somebody who is noble-hearted and noble behavior. They were called Aryan. And one of the stalwarts of philosophy, Adi Shankaracharya ji, his mother's name, this is 2000 years ago. His mother's name is Aryamba.
Which is noble mother, literally. That's what
noble mother, right?
And several places in Ramayana and Mahabharata, we find the word Arya referring to O noble one, O noble-hearted one. So it comes back to the theory that, or not just theory, there are enough scores of works that can be studied, which Nikunj Bhai was mentioning, is Max Muller. He brought in a lot of things which we as Hindu have to weed out all the things and flush it out. Hopefully one day we will. one of the things was the Arya supremacy, the Arya invading into India, and the Arya bringing in the culture, tradition, Vedic literature, and the practices, religion and culture practices into India, where there is a complete disconnect of that practice in that which is supposed to be the origin of it. So the assumptions that were made, Max Muller was given a job by the East India Company to put this in perspective so that it can be given back into the Indian community which they were ruling at that time. So that confusion which he seeded, not just him, there were several other scholars during that time, but he championed that thought. And I think that is what inspired fellow German Hitler, and he picked up these concepts of Arya supremacy and the hooked cross. He himself doesn't call it as swastika, he calls it as a hooked cross, and that he makes it as a symbol for these Arya race.
So it's a kind of
there's a professor at Dartmouth. Her name is Susanna Heschel. She actually has written about this, the Aryan Jesus, as she calls it, in her book, and it's very interesting that you should read it. I have a link on my article on the CoHNA website. She talks about how when he says like Jesus, he said Jesus is he's actually Aryan. Okay, Jesus is from this Aryan race, the supremacist, the supreme race that governed the whole world. So Jesus belongs to that, and how the Jews corrupted the whole idea of Jesus and everything, and he wants to uncorrupt that. This is very twisted in how he interprets the whole idea of Jesus. Never mind that he was not even an Aryan, he was a Middle Easterner. It's like very different person itself. So he creates a Aryan Jesus that is white, that is very much sort of in part of this whole narrative, and that's where the twisting happens. So that Aryan Jesus needs there's a symbol, and the hooked cross became the symbol of the rise of Jesus from persecution, right? So imagine this guy sitting in the prison writing Mein Kampf. He feels he's persecuted, his people are persecuted, and he needs a symbol that shows the rise from persecution. And like you said, Dr. Nakagaki, I think what people don't understand is majority of Germans were Christians and are Christians, right? So you cannot have a foreign symbol, swastika, appealing to someone who's a Christian and looking at it. That's like for us, if you show a Hindu a Christian cross, for them it's like, okay, that's a Christian cross, who cares, right? That's like that's not our symbol. But if you show them Om or swastika, well, that's our symbol that we resonate with. So you have to flip it over and say, well, in the case of Christians at that time, you have to show them a symbol that is connected to who they are. They can resonate with it. And in fact, there's a lot of history behind it. So people like Susanna Heschel and others have discussed this. There's another professor called Daniel Rancourt-Lafarrière. He has written a book on this too, and there's a link on the CoHNA website on this, where he talks about how the tracing of anti-Semitism with Christianity and the use of symbols. So just like the burning cross is not an accident. People know about the burning cross, but naturally they don't condemn all crosses, right? There's a difference between a burning cross and then there's the Christian cross, which is a holy symbol for Christians, while the burning cross is a symbol of racism. So similarly, we have to differentiate between the two. You have to condemn the hook cross, the Nazi hook cross, which is hakenkreuz, and you cannot condemn the swastika because swastika has nothing to do. So we have to understand this history, and it's very critical from many different angles. And as Dr. Nakagaki and Swami Sarveshananda said, the word Arya itself is also defamed here, because just like how he twisted the idea of this hooked cross and people wrongfully associate swastika, he also twisted the idea of Arya, because just like how swastika means noble or peace and well-being, Arya means noble, right? So that's a different conversation for a different day. But we're coming to towards the end of this hour. So what I want to do is maybe let's talk about briefly. In your thought, Dr. Nakagaki, let's talk about the documentary, because we haven't talked about that. You're creating a documentary about understanding and building some understanding around swastika called Manji, which is which we just talked about right now. Can you tell us a little bit more about the documentary?
Sure. because first of all, this is kind of connected to what I wanted to do with the swastika itself, because people has so many misunderstanding, and so in order to clear up, this is, as even we just talk about, it's kind of complicated. We can't talk about everything, but we need to tell them in a short period of time. I mean, I think it's this swastika has that complication, really clearly talking about this side and that side comparison and so forth. Well, first I thought we need a book to write it because if I start talking about the swastika just this session only, people might think, oh, I mean, a lot of misunderstanding come out of us too, So that's why I really wanted to make sure that people, if you don't understand, before you say anything, please read this one, because this book is made for the, dissertation of the school itself is try to bring the kind of information so that we can have a dialogue. Because before, there's no way we can talk about the swastika simply because there's no, the many books or anything like back up to what the swastika historically, all those meaning. So that's why we need something to begin with the dialogue. So otherwise, I feel very dangerous to, because sometimes you just, why do I have to hasten? Because swastika in this country, of course, means equal to the Hitler. So whoever the care for the swastika is called evil person or a hateful person and so forth. But of course, in Japan, of course, if you have this symbol, then that means you're Buddha or something like that. But then, so it's much more better symbol, everything. But yet here is different. So it's a kind of dangerous to be like that. So anyway, sorry about a little going to the other side.
I understand. No worries at all, Dr. Nakagaki.
But yet, so that particular symbol, what do you call it? Sorry, I lost I shouldn't interrupt myself, so that's what happens sometimes, But anyway, bringing back to everything what I said, to the side, okay, and then bring back to the part of the things that Manji does. So the book does provide all the information, right? So that intellectually, and then they can have all the different books I listed, so they can study. So now, this book is kind of a dissertation, as I say. So it was kind of complicated. So, but then we need the background for this. But yet, for the popular, the general people in public, then we need a little more easier access to it. So the like movies and these are very important.
Movies, documentary, exactly.
So that should be appealed to the people. And then so actually I was looking for some of the I start talking with some of the young Japanese people after I created this book. So I wanted to make this to the movie or some kind of material, educational material, maybe possibly. So we're looking for and talking to the people who are, maybe the field. And so actually the Yusuke Kiname, he was not really the one that I asked. But however, the person who I asked came with him. So he was a camera person a lot of times. So, but then at the same time, he do also make a documentary, directors too. So that's why after we talk, but then the person I wanted to do, maybe I possibly asked them, but it's kind of timing was not right. So he can't do it that quickly because I was going to do this one before the Olympic game. So, Tokyo Olympic in the last year, because of the many people come. So maybe good opportunity to show the meaning of the swastika at that time. But anyway, so in the end, the Yosuke said he wanted to make it. Actually, he can do, and he has a friend for the Jewish person who are interested in, because he shared my book actually. So he was talking with Jewish friends, and then so he got interested in, and so that this film actually came. So these are all 30s, so young people. This is another important thing because sometimes I'm getting old too. So in a way, old people may not change their mind, and it's just like a fixed mind, so not flexible and so forth. Not just the body, but sometimes the mind itself is so stuck to the the things and can't move, or you can't so so from that sense, because we're talking about the future, I'm not actually expecting this change overnight. We're just thinking, but then yet it's important symbol to be realized, even though it may takes about 10 years, 20 years. I already spent 10 years, so it's not 10 years, so 20 years or 30 years. But then still, this symbol itself is so important. This is also, I would consider this is the most important interface symbol ever exists in our planet. So, but then this is one of the symbol, any interface gathering we can't use. We'll never be able to use it. So so far, but then we may be able to. But so anyway, so that's such important symbol in a history, because this is like a treasure, living treasure of the human history, right? Because like how many thousand years carry this symbol, that itself is amazing thing. So that's why I wanted to make sure that this will be known, and then we have a dialogue, and then have a more understanding of the East and West as this symbol express the balance, right, really between the East and West and North and South and everything would be connection. Then we're talking about interconnectedness nowadays, so this is really the symbol of interconnectedness of people, and then also bringing the people together, and then so that's the bringing the peace actually together. So from that sense, I feel like this symbol is just a tiny symbol, of course, but yet has a, it's like a same value of the universe, like a galaxy. I mentioned, show you before, the picture of a galaxy is like a swastika actually. So it is a swastika, is a
That's
galaxy.
correct. It's like the Milky Way revolving.
Yeah, Milky Ways. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, but anyway, did I explain why the?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay,
so where can people? We're going to post a link to the documentary. The funding page. I think it's important that everybody supports the documentary with financial contributions. Some have already, based on our anniversary program, they've already donated some. I know some people are donating more.
Yes, we received some donation too, so we really appreciate, because this is a next step, or first next step to bring more towards the public. So I feel like it's very important film to go. Yes. And then we do have a lot of interesting people to interview, the Jewish people, of course, the many rabbis, and then the Buddhist priests and Hindu priests, and lay people as well. I mean, just the common people who are walking on the street, even like a ramen shop and stuff like that. So it was interestingly, corrected the information to reach out and how people react. And then you probably feel the same way, like so like those people who are interviewed. So that's the one thing. Maybe, I don't know, can you share this part and then I can show the video? Are you want to show the video now, or do you want to
let me go to the website? Show the let me just show the let me just go there.
And then so maybe that's actually only 2 minutes. So, but then you just create, So because it is actually, I just also appreciate really for those young people. I know, this symbol itself is so controversial, but then, it's very difficult to even include, try to be out, that's the brave, I guess, in one way. And even like this book, I wrote this book for actually over 10 years ago now, right? So, but then then came up only a couple of years ago. Because of how difficult this topic itself is. If it's okay, good.
So here's the page that people can go to.
How much do you have now?
I don't know. seedandspark.com.
Yeah, we're here almost there.
89%.
And then we have 6 more days to go. So within the 6 days, at least we need to get at least this point. It would be great. And so
you'll get there. I'm pretty sure about that.
Okay, so I hope you get some help from people who are watching this and then listening this, then you can watch that too. So there's a different ways you can contribute, and then we'll give some of the extra things, I guess.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. We will.
Oh, this
is Guruji.
Yeah.
Correct. So I'm just showing people the website itself, why it matters.
Yeah.
And who are the different people you have interviewed.
Yeah, he's the author of the another swastika things for the.
Yeah, here's a temple.
Stephen
Heller.
Stephen Heller. So he's in that too. Very interesting to discuss with him too. So.
Yes.
Because he didn't read my book before he write the even newer one. So.
Yeah, correct. And recently, as you had mentioned, he actually changed some of his idea about it, right?
Because he didn't know it was really like a swastika, because American people read only swastika. Oh, so no, the front page, on the top of the page, if you click it, you can go to the website.
Let's go to that.
Mm-hmm. Website, I mean the Facebook Live. I mean the click that one.
The YouTube, right? Let's try that.
And then go to YouTube, jump to YouTube.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I think I have to share the audio.
Make it louder. Oh.
Okay. 1 second, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you share screen, you have to also opt to share the sound with the screen.
While you're trying to fix that,
then we're talking a little bit.
In the last 1.5 days, what I had researched, there are at least about 14 or 15 books written in several Indian languages, primarily in Hindi, on swastika and its use as yantra, as a Lakshmi yantra, and the oldest books range all the way from about few thousand years.
Right.
But of late, I think in the last 15-20 years, there have been at least 14-15 authors who have specifically written on swastika and why it is a dharmic symbol.
Do they have a translation into English, or not many books are translated?
So far, what I have seen are in Hindi and other Indian languages. So,
but what we can do is, as part of our campaign, which is now going to go international, and Chinmaya Mission has just joined. So Richa ji from Chinmaya Mission West actually emailed us. So we have a conversation tomorrow with her. This is going to go international. So as part of that campaign, we can commission some translations of these books, because I think these are very important for people to understand. So,
I think so.
Thank you, Swamiji, for bringing that up. It's just great to know. All right, let me share the screen. I think the sound will work now.
All right.
The swastika is one of the most polarizing symbols on the planet. Most people know it as the symbol of Nazis and modern hate groups, but its history goes back much further than that. The swastika was originally a symbol of peace and prosperity for many people, including Buddhists, Hindus, and even pre-World War II America. And for many, it still means peace. For many others, though, its meaning cannot be separated from violence.
Manji is a documentary that aims to bridge the gap. In the film, we follow Buddhist priest Reverend T.K. Nakagaki on his mission to reclaim the swastika. Jumping between New York and Japan, we capture dozens of interviews with religious leaders, academics, politicians, artists, and more, all asking a central question. How can we embrace the swastika as a positive symbol without ignoring the hate, pain, and violence associated with it? What can we do to reconcile viewpoints that seem diametrically opposed but equally valid?
As anti-Semitism increases, so do hate crimes against the Asian American community. It is our hope that by fostering timely conversations between these two groups and others, we can find a way to move forward together.
Filming for Manji was completed earlier this year, and now we need your help to cover the cost of the post-production process that will allow us to finish and release the film.
Funds raised will go towards licensing fees to incorporate much-needed archival and news footage and music, as well as visual and sound editing. Any additional funds raised will be used to help get the film into festivals and promote it after its release. Once the film is complete and released, we plan to share it with schools, interfaith groups, and other organizations to act as an educational tool and conversation starter.
Now more than ever, it's up to each and every one of us to learn about cultures that are different than ours. We hope that Manji inspires much-needed empathy and that our viewers come away with a new understanding of something familiar.
For more information, please check out our crowdfunding page on Seed and Spark, or follow us on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Appreciate it.
But it's going to be an important effort for all of us to support you, and this is for the greater good of the dharmic community anyways. And in fact, what we're also going to be working on with your help, Dr. Nakagaki, and all the other partners that we have, is creating materials, educational materials for schools, educational materials for just information for people who are adults. We have created a brochure. You can find that on CoHNA's website. But beyond that, we want to create more and more materials so that people understand what these things are. And as we know, there are different laws being considered that declare swastika as a symbol of hate. But what people don't realize is that stuff is, even in schools, there are policies that teach swastika as a symbol of hate, right? So we have a lot of work to do. But I think empathizing with the pain and suffering of other communities due to Hitler and Nazi Germany, we have to empathize with them too. But naturally speaking, we want to have the conversation. And as dharmic people, we truly feel people's pain. But at the same time, we also want to make sure that there is an honest conversation and a mutual understanding and respect of the fact that swastika is a symbol of well-being, peace, and prosperity. And people need to rightly condemn the hooked cross or the Nazi hooked cross, however you want to call it, and more appropriately known as the hakenkreuz. So with that, I want to thank both of you for being with us and this wonderful conversation. This is a much needed conversation on Buddha's birthday, Buddha Jayanti or Buddha Purnima or Vesak. It's a pleasure to have both of you. And it's always great to be in the company of scholars and spiritual leaders and people who can show us a more enlightened path. Namaste to all the viewers, and thank you for joining us today.
Arigato-san.
Thank you. Arigato. Namaste. Thank you so much.
Namaste. Hariyo.
Sadhu-san.
Okay, so the live stream ended.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're good to go. We're finished with the live stream now.
Yeah, thank you. No, seriously, I mean that's nice to have more of Hindus, everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
this is good.
Yeah,
I'm sure you will definitely reach in next 2-3 days.
Yeah,
it's not much of a gap left.
I mean, this is the last session that because I try to do with the different group. But the beginning with actually the little interface group also, and then the Hindu group, the Jewish group, and then Buddhist group, and of course the crew people, and then that last one, Jain. I mean, I was going to the Jain too, the Hindu, but then somehow a little bit too much now, I guess so.
But this is good.
Yeah, so at least we try to cover in general some of the parts of it, and I believe this is pretty good.
I wish you really a good luck, and we will fight it. We will stand, and the understanding and the dialogue is a necessity. And
because
I am really pleased to see that 10 years the effort that you have put.
Yeah, it takes for a long time.
It's a penance in itself. It's a penance in itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So at least I have a patient. I think maybe American people are not going to continue like this much, but once I guess I don't know, Japanese people. Myself is a year of ox.
Year of ox.
Year of ox is really like a steady and never be disturbed.
Never go back.
Yeah. So
only march forward, never march backwards.
So that's why at least going forward very well so far. So I really appreciate the Nikunji picking up the book. I mean,
absolutely, it's
really appreciate it. Yeah. So
yes, we all come together for a reason, right? That's
I believe
karma
so.
brings us together. So absolutely, and we have a lot to do. And I think the dharmic communities don't get involved in advocating for our culture because we all feel, I've seen this. I was telling you about the whole Buddha head, right? It really annoys me that people, keep a head of the Buddha and in bathroom or in like some bad areas, but also just in general as a head. That's very disrespectful. And it has become a fashion statement in Hollywood to keep the Buddha head, right? And it's just ridiculous. But we don't say anything, right?
Because there was a Buddha carpet in a resort. I was passing through that town. In that resort, I saw a Buddha carpet. People were walking. I talked to that manager and the owners and got them to remove it off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it should be placed in the
It should be a
the
place of
wall or something
worship,
is
not
okay, but
people
not-
walking upon it.
Yeah. That's not really good at all. Yeah.
That's true.
So yeah.
Great.
So it's,
Well,
okay.
I
well, thank you so much
want to
for
thank
your
you
time.
both for
Thank
joining.
you all.
Thank
Swami,
you.
thank you for the